Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this amazing podcast. I guess it's screen share. Anyways, we have Mark Diaz from Vinix, and today we'll be going over some of his special sales tricks and how he approaches clients. So anyways, Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and Vinix and how you guys started?
Hi. It's a pleasure to be here, Patrick. And we got started back in the late 2000s doing telecommunications services work for the public telecommunications companies until we bumped into you, and we decided that it was best to build our own platform based on 2600 hertz and Kazoo, and that's what led us to where we are today.
Very cool. Now, Mark, maybe you can explain a little bit more about before 2600 hertz. So when you said you were working for like the public telecoms, what were you actually doing for them?
Sure. So Vinix was involved in doing the installations, activations. So basically, when VoIP began to really take off commercially and for the masses, there was a big discrepancy between the what they call the old wires and pliers type of technicians and engineers versus the VoIP. I was fortunate enough to have been playing with it long enough that I was very familiar with it. And I began to get all of these contracts, and I built a company based on those contracts. We did a lot of services work, particularly on the East Coast, installations, activations, troubleshootings, consumer advocacy, you name it. We were the ones who really got the contracts to solve and implement a lot of that.
Absolutely. Now, were you guys more of an agent or a reseller of this, or just like a part-time employee?
No, we were subcontractors. We were contracted by these public telecoms contractually to basically anytime they had a new customer to bring on in regards to their VoIP services, we were contracted to activate those customers or troubleshoot them or disconnect them or escalate issues with them, etc.
Absolutely. So at that point, how did you decide to, go from a subcontractor to owning your own business and actually going to the next level and, offering these type of services?
Well, back in about 2008, 2009, I began to see the writing on the wall, and I realized that my business model, while it was lucrative, did have a plateau, right? I was only as good as when they needed me, and I was paid one time. Our company was paid one time, and those customers established monthly recurring revenue for other companies to pay every month. And I thought that was kind of a bum deal, but at the time, establishing your own communication network was next to near impossible without significant funding and significant resources. That's where the universe kind of twisted its head around and bumped me into you guys when you guys first came up with conceptualization for this for the Kazoo product, and I was all in.
Awesome. Well, Mark, first of all, let me thank you for being all in. And second of all, let me ask you, what made you decide to go with Kazoo? I mean, there's a lot of options out there. There's a lot of open source options. What made you decide that Kazoo is the right fit for you?
There are a lot of reasons, actually. I had worked with Darren, even though not directly, for many years when he worked on other projects, and I saw that he was extremely intelligent and he knew what he was doing. And then when you guys spoke to me the first time about your conceptual ideas and where you wanted to go, it gave me the confidence that this is the product I want to use, because it allowed us full control with the vision that I was looking for. And my vision is very simple: being able to provide a full-fledged solution to a customer.
Got it. Now tell me about when you say customers, what type of customers do you actually go after? Are you going after end users? Are you going after resellers? Are you going after agents? What's your ideal customer that you guys actually go after at Vinix?
We go after end users. We're very adamant that we want to control the experience for the customer from start to finish. Not to say that anybody else's business model is worse or ours. That's just simply our paradigm. We feel most confident that we want to be able to control the experience for the customer so that they can continue to go about what it is they do every day and in regards to business, and not have to worry about their communication systems or platforms.
Got it. Now, when you go after the customers, I'm assuming you're going after a lot of customers that either have, traditional telecom, or they're going after, you're going after customers who are looking between Ring Central or some of the other big guys. What's kind of your, go-to approach on how to get new customers?
Well, that's a multi-pronged approach. Needless to say, we use SEO and SEM to get the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, the smaller customers. More of the smaller customers are looking for education and looking to improve their information on making an informed decision. We go after them in that respect. A lot of referrals from existing customers and from vendors that we do business with. We do work with a lot of vendors and channel partners who are looking to, especially MSPs or IT companies that want to provide their services and just want a layer to be able to provide reliable voice services on top of that. And it just continues to go from there.
That's great. So when you're going after these customers, Mark, what would you tell to our community, kind of like your go-to, get your foot in the door? How do you really sell what you have, your product, versus everybody else's? Because everybody else says, hey, we have a VoIP solution. What's different between Kazoo versus all these other VoIP solutions out there?
Well, it's funny that you say that, only because I have not used a lot of the other products out there. It's been many years since I started playing with everybody else's stuff. However, we have received a lot of feedback from existing customers and customers that we've been able to have them sign deals pretty quickly, and that's because they've actually gone out there and demoed a lot of the competing products, and they've all given us similar feedback that Kazoo absolutely has the better user interface and has a more streamlined process to management and administration. And when we hear that feedback back from our customers, it gives us the confidence that we're providing them the right solution.
That's great. And so let's say on a typical sales call, you go to your customer or potential customer, and they're saying, hey, I'm deciding between you and Ring Central and 8x8. Is there any silver bullets you have, or anything that's kind of in your back pocket that you feel confident that you bring out and you're like, oh, that's the gotcha factor?
I demo the product.
Okay.
That's typically the nail in the head right there. When they see the innovation and ingenuity that's gone into the product, and you describe to them how it was built from the platform, from the ground up, to provide scalability and reliability, as opposed to mismatching different technologies together just to get you a solution, they see that, and whether they appreciate it or not, they definitely understand, and they see the innovation that went into it, and that in itself sells itself. So
that's great. Now, Mark, what's the biggest objection that you hear from your customers when you're kind of going into a new account or potential customers?
There still seems to be a lot of pushback from the old days when VoIP was relatively not as reliable as it can be today due to bandwidth limitations and etc. I think that a lot of it has to do with their confidence in your company and your culture as a whole. Are you a company that is truly serious about providing a business communication service, that you're not going to disappear, that you're going to be able to provide the customer service that goes into such a service? Listen, because at the end of the day, while we could have the best user interface available, they want to know that there's somebody there to assist them if and when they get into an issue. That customer service is valuable, and the customers look for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Mark, you talked about your how you approach the accounts. You talked about some of the objection handling. What would you say it's, what type of accounts do you go after from a size perspective? Is it 5 users? Is it 100 users? Is there kind of the sweet spot that you really focus on?
Typically, I know that that's a very normal practice in other telecoms and other providers. However, we don't. We believe that everybody's equal, and I'll tell you why. Just a quick story about that. I had a customer who was a one-seat beauty salon. She only had one phone on her desk. That actual account led me to a 30-seat account because her husband happened to own a business that was significantly larger than the hair salon that she was owner of. So at the end of the day, you're not only establishing yourself as a technology player in the space, but you're establishing a reputation. And when it comes to services businesses, reputation does go a long way. And when you have customers that are happy with your product, that are happy to recommend you, those are attributes and considerations you can't buy.
Got it. So you do a lot of referral selling.
Yes.
That's great. And so for anybody listening, if you guys have some customers, remind your customers to, if they love your service, talk to their other friends and family to get more people on your platform. That's fantastic, Mark. So let me ask you a quick question. If we have a lot of new resellers, we have a lot of new partners, who or what would you say to them if you're a new partner going onto the Kazoo platform working with 2600 Hertz? Is there anything you'd recommend for best practices or how to get started?
Well, I can definitely give my input and experience in that. In the very beginning, I was very excited about the platform to the point where I wanted to run it on my own network, as you well know. You did suggest to me many years back, hey, why don't you use our platform first, get your processes in order, and then move to your own. I did not do that, which in hindsight I wish I would have. If I could give any experience of mine back to resellers, I would strongly suggest that they utilize the Kazoo platform as it is today and focus strongly on their marketing, support, and sales rather than the engineering aspect. Let you guys do what you guys do best and let them focus on getting customers. Once they get to a size that allows them to manage and mitigate those new management divisions, that's when I would move to operating your own cluster, so to speak.
Absolutely. So in case anybody's listening out there, just a reminder, we have 3 offerings. One is the hosted environment, which is a shared hosted environment for somewhat new users. The next one is what we call our private cloud, which is for people who want to have their own private servers on our data centers, which we have in San Jose, New Jersey, and Chicago. And then finally we have what we call global infrastructure, which is what Mark was referring to. Is he started on global infrastructure, which means that he had his own data centers, he had his own servers, we installed the software on his servers, and then we helped him manage those servers. But that's great advice, Mark, because a lot of people when they're trying to start out, they really should be focused on their sales and marketing of the platform, and not really so focused on making sure that they're administrators of databases and things like that. So we agree with you, and once you get to a certain size, then you can expand, or if you're expanding internationally, that's usually when you go to more of a global infrastructure offering. So 100% agree with you. Mark, from your perspective, and you're in Florida, who is your biggest competition down there?
In regards to competition, I would say that we come across a lot of 8x8, Ring Central, Vonage particularly. Vonage very recently, but very strong. They've definitely made a big push into the business unified communications market, and I'm seeing a lot of them. However, I still see some, on a smaller level, I see some ILEX and some CLEX still competing out there, the Momentums, a lot of BroadSoft competitors.
Yep.
However, when it comes to us against BroadSoft, we typically don't have any issue if we're brought to the table for consideration, because the Kazoo platform is still significantly light years ahead of their platform. There are some other platforms, like I said, Ring Central, 8x8, Vonage, that they're built on their own, and they are contenders to be dealt with. However, there are definitely ways to mitigate that competition where you can come out on top.
Absolutely, absolutely. Is there anything that comes to the top of your head how to mitigate that versus just finding out your customers' requirements and fixing whatever issues they're going with?
Yeah. At the end of the day, understanding how the system works is a key component. We hear this a lot actually from our customers and our new onboarding customers, that too many people in sales today don't pay attention to what their solutions are. They're more or less trying to push whatever features they have onto them. If you pay attention to your customer and you realize that every customer is an individual and unique, and they all have their own pain points and they all have their own strengths that they're looking for in their communications, just the fact that you pay attention to that shows then that you're coming from a company and a culture that cares about their communications needs, and that you're wanting to perform a valuable service to them, and that goes a long way.
And I agree with you. And I tell all our sales reps over here, which is find the pain points, solve the pain points, and the customer will move forward with you. I think there's too many salespeople out there that are tellers, not sellers, which means that they talk about everything, and they don't actually try to find out what the pain points are. They just say, hey, we have 100 million different features, and a lot of customers, they don't care because they're like, I have these 3 pain points. If you solve these 3 pain points, it doesn't matter on price anymore. I just need these pain points solved. So again, one of the little sayings we have in our office, which is everybody has 2 ears and 1 mouth. That should be the ratio of listening to talking. So, and I think it works well with our sales team because they're getting better and better trying to find out what are the pain points and how do we solve for those pain points. So, totally agree with you, Mark. I think at this point, unless there's anything else you want, I was going to see if there's any questions from the audience. How do you guys want to?
We have one.
Mark, what user interface are you showing to your prospects?
Right now we use Monster UI. We have a slightly modified version, but it's nothing. It's nothing that's visibly differentiating from the current Monster UI that 2600 Hertz offers.
Great.
I think that resellers and people in telecom in general have to understand is that while we're in telecom every day and we love what we see, a majority of customers will simply go about their days doing whatever businesses that they conduct themselves in every day. What they want to know is that 9 months down the road, will they have an interface that's reliable and easy to management, an easily managed interface where they can go in there and make the changes they need to make on the fly without too much trouble or have to remember too much in order to make those. I mean, I still bump into companies today that still have $70,000 on-site PBXs that they purchased from Cisco, and if they want to make a phone ring here instead of here, they have to pay $150 for a site technician to come out. I mean, when you demonstrate to a customer the interface, even though they may or may not ever use it again, when they see that the innovation was put there in place, that somebody actually came up with a thoughtful process to mitigate those pain points for them and make life easier for them, that's when they feel that the services company that you provide cares about them, and that's what customers are looking for at the end of the day.
Now, Mark, do you actually give access to the interface, like once you leave the customer? Like, do you give them full access, or do you just give them the user portal, or do you give them like Smart PBX also?
I'm a huge fan of demos. I'm a huge fan of trial accounts. We do limit the trial accounts, obviously, and make sure that nobody goes crazy. However, we want to encourage them to play with it if they so choose. If we go in there and we see that it's a company that has an IT staff or management staff that is really interested in using it because they do make a lot of changes to the system, we more than encourage them to open up a demo account with us, get in there, play with it, register some phones, talk to our support staff, and make calls and make the changes they need and see how they feel with it. If they have questions, they can contact us. I think it goes a long way to show that you're willing to put your money where your mouth is and prove to them that you deserve their business as opposed to treating them like a number.
Absolutely. Now, Mark, how long in general is your trials? Is it a 2-week trial, a 1-week trial, a month trial?
Typically, depending on the size of the customer, but even then, typically we will give 30 days.
Okay.
If the customer is rather large and they're looking to test a lot of various different things, we give them, we play it by ear and we give them time as needed. But the typical customer who just wants to play with it, make some calls on it, get some people in the office using it, we typically give them 30 days and we follow up with them once a week just to see how things are going, see if they have any questions, see if there's any way we can help them or show them any additional things.
Absolutely. Now, do you have a follow-up process during their trial? Do you contact them every couple weeks, or do you just wait till the end of the trial?
We typically contact them every week.
Okay.
Just to see if there's anything we could do, see how things are going, see if they have any questions. We also do pay attention to the usage that they're utilizing on that demo account. If we see them making a lot of calls, if we see that there's some issues, we've seen things as silly, for example, where we use 4-digit extensions, but they were trying to use another extension methodology. We've seen things where a customer was on our service, but they were trying to transfer it to a telephone that was still on their previous provider.
Yep.
So, you can't take for granted that the customer understands everything you do from a telecom perspective, and that's what they're hiring you for. That's what they want the service for. They want an expert to explain to them how everything works, how it can make their lives easier, and what they should do to make things better for their productivity and efficiency.
Absolutely. So now, Mark, let's say hypothetically you close this deal after their trial. Now, are you managing the client's PBX for them, or do you give them full access so that they can manage the PBX functionality for themselves?
We give both. As much as we love the Kazoo interface, we have come to realize that most customers simply do not use it. Most customers, primarily most customers, will set it up one time, and they usually want the help and assistance of a support engineer to do that. They set it up the first time, and typically they won't touch it again for a very long time. At the end of the day, there will be some that try to get in there and make the changes themselves. It makes it very simple, obviously, but 9 times out of 10, most customers simply want to pick up the phone or send an email or get on a WebRTC where they speak to a support engineer and say, hey, listen, I just need to change this real quick. Can you do this for me? Thanks. And in my opinion, you have to have the best of both worlds.
Absolutely.
You have to be a services company. So while more and more people and more millennials are growing up and they want to handle their own user interface, and that's fine. We do offer that, obviously. We do have to be there for those companies who are established, who simply want to be able to pick up the telephone or want to be able to shoot off an email, get the changes they need immediately, and be done with it and focus back to their day-to-day business life. We make sure that they have both.
Absolutely, and that's a huge value add, which is one of the things that differentiate you from a lot of the competition. So that's great. Someone asked, are you selling 2600 hertz mobile? And if you are, how do you market it?
We are not officially selling 2600 hertz mobile. However, we are integrated with 2600 hertz mobile. 2600 hertz mobile is at this point, for us anyway, it's a niche product that allows us to offer more value add to an existing customer. Yep. We're currently tying it into our Salesforce integration, which makes it extremely valuable for remote workers who want to be able to dial out from their personal line versus their business line. And they want to make sure, hey, if this is dialing out from their business line, that they record all the calls, that the call gets logged inside of Salesforce, etc. So there's a lot of value add for businesses, and particularly remote workers. That is something that we add as a feature add as to the whole product, not a product as in and of itself.
Absolutely. Well, and we probably have still a handful of clients that have really taken on to 2600 hertz mobile. And I think from a marketing standpoint, one of their big value adds is that they can go into a client and say, hey, here's your desk phone, here's your WebRTC phone, and here's your mobile phone, all for $80 a month per user. And a lot of clients are looking at that as like, great, we have a one-stop shop for everything that we need from a telecommunications standpoint. So, but Mark, you and I will talk offline, and I really want to get you more involved in the mobile program because, like I said, I think this could be a huge opportunity for you. So, let's get the next question. Next question. Where can I check a demo version of Monster UI? So I think that might be for, if you want to talk to Mark, you feel free to reach out to Mark and he can give you a demo version of Monster UI. If you are not currently a client of 2600 hertz, you can talk to our team and we can give you guys a demo version of Monster UI. Otherwise, if you are a client and you guys are on the updated contracts, you should have all that in your interface already. So you should be able to use that. How do you contact 2600 hertz? Well, that's a great question. So you can contact us at sales@2600hertz.com. That's 2600hz.com. Now, next question. What do you do for billing and quoting solutions? So, Mark, how do you handle billing and how do you handle quoting?
Currently, we use third-party systems only because we came from those systems, and we've been trying to focus more on product than we have on back-end administration. Currently, we do use a Sugar CRM variant to handle quoting and CRM tasks that we tie into Kazoo via the crossbar. So if we do spin up new customers within a our CRM. It does hit the crossbar API on Kazoo and spin up all the customer information and put all that information in there. We offload Kazoo CDRs to a billing platform called Blue Logics currently. We are looking forward to 2600 Hertz's billing solution that I know they are feverishly working on, that will make it much easier as a one-stop shop. One of the things that we do differently than most telecoms is we do bill post-pay.
Okay.
So a lot of what billing is circled around is prepay. We don't do much prepay. We only do bill by minutes for international and toll-free. So that's the only reason why we still offload CDRs. And of course, we use SureTax for our tax compliance.
Absolutely. And if you heard what Mark said, my product team would kill me if I announced that we are coming out with a billing platform. But hypothetically, Mark has a little inside knowledge into some of the stuff we're building internally. So I'm not saying anything, but in the next couple of months, you will see some exciting news coming out. With that said, are you charging for updates, changes, or support? So is there any additional cost to if the client also calls you and says, hey, we need an update, or we need a change, or we need to add another user, or we need to, we're having, Susie in accounting got fired, or Billy from, accounting got moved to a different department. Do you charge them for each support call, or how does your operation work?
We do not.
Okay.
We've come to realize that most people, as much as it may sound like it could be an issue, the phones don't ring here. The support lines don't ring here. The product runs itself, and that's one of the beautiful parts of Kazoo. It truly is an innovative platform, and that's why we're so happy with it. At the end of the day, our support team we've nicknamed the Maytag Repair Crew. They literally crawl all over themselves to answer support calls because the phones don't ring here as often as one might think. Traditionally, the calls that you get are simple calls. Can I reset my voicemail? Susie Q got fired, so on and so forth. We do make provisions for the first couple of weeks of onboarding.
Okay.
So we've come to experience that the first couple of weeks of our onboarding are when customers call the most out of the life cycle of the customer. So they're going to make changes. They're going to rethink certain processes or efficiencies that they thought it would be better if it rang here, but it really should ring there. Or you know what? I decided I want to record calls, so on and so forth. We stay very close in contact with our customers within 2 weeks of onboarding the customer. After that, we see a significant decline in support calls from customers to virtually non-existent. I mean, if you take the time to implement onboarding processes and procedures that are very thorough, that go through from the beginning to start to finish with the customer, whether it's automated or whether it's with an individual, that little effort goes a long way, and I highly encourage anybody to pay close attention to the onboarding process.
Absolutely, absolutely. Here's another question. Can we use Kazoo only for PBX stuff and still use existing soft switch or call routing and billing? So the answer to that question is you can use Kazoo for your PBX, and then you can bring your own carrier so that you can send everything out via your own carriers. I believe that's the question. And then for the routing and billing, that's for the carrier. For the billing piece, yeah, you can bring anything you want from a billing platform, and we can export the CDRs to whichever billing platform you want. Mark, anything you want to add to that?
No, that pretty much hits the nail on the head. I mean, if that's the beautiful part about your product is that you didn't try to lock into a certain paradigm. What you tried to do is give a toolbox for anybody to be able to implement any way that they saw fit to bring the services and solutions to their customers. And that's one of the big selling points for us back in 2009, obviously, was on Kazoo. It was open source. The paradigm was geared towards making it so you can implement it any way you saw fit. So as you just said, even if you're hosting it and I want to use my own billing platform and I want to use my own carrier, you make it no muss or fuss to do that. And I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Absolutely. Next question. Mark, do you offer video conferencing, chat, to compete with companies like Ring Central or Vonage?
We do. We offer video conferencing based on Modverto. It is not fully integrated with the Kazoo platform at this time. However, it is something that is on our roadmap. Additionally, I hate to use the word Slack type integration. We do have a Slack style competitor, but we plan on wrapping up some integrations that go along with Kazoo in that aspect, simply to make it more efficient and productive for our customers.
Absolutely. And are you getting a lot of requests for either video conferencing or chat?
We don't get a lot of requests in the traditional sense. However, when we educate the customer that those features are available and the different utilizations to use with it, they do become interested and intrigued. I find that customers that are interested in UCaaS solutions are typically turned off by the current competitive climate because, I mean, one of the largest ones out there now, they don't sell anything in between. They only sell the UCaaS solution as a whole, and they charge $50+ per seat for that. And I think that turns a lot of customers off. I think customers need to be gradually migrated into those features and solutions. It's not going to be a smack across the head type of sale. They're just not going to get it, and for a lot of them, it's not efficient or productive. They simply want to be able to communicate, and a good example of that is when we all first started. We all thought that once Kazoo was built, fax would be dead, right? We all hate fax more with a passion. We thought it would be dead as Dillinger the minute we launched this product, and we came to find out that a lot of people hang on to those because they don't see the value add in moving from a fax machine to an electronic fax, and they just want to know that something works, and they just want to continue on with what it is they do all day. So I like to tell everybody that Telecom is a thankless business. They just expect it to work, and they expect it to work the way that they've always known it to work. The minute it doesn't work, they expect you to be there. And there's no thank you for making sure it works all year round. It's only the beating when it doesn't. However, in today's climate with a lot of competing telecoms that are losing the understanding that customers have changed the way that they do things, they expect more from their services providers, and this is a ripe opportunity to do that.
Yep. So this actually goes into the next question. Mark, do you offer an unlimited package, or is everything a la carte?
At Vinix, we do offer an unlimited package for calls within the United States. I'm not a big fan of competing on price. However, I do believe that you have to be competitive on price, and you can't be too far out of the spectrum where they can go anywhere else. I mean, at the end of the day, the incumbents such as AT&T and Comcast and so on, they do offer unlimited plans within the United States. It's my belief that if you want to compete with those incumbents, you do have to be at least competitive on price. You don't have to beat them on price. And in many cases, we've been above the prices of those competitors. When they see the value add of the platform, that typically negates the small addition in price. However, you do have to be competitive in price.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned faxing before, so there was one question about faxing, so let's talk about that. Can you explain the different ways to solve faxing for your clients? So what do you know we thought faxing would be dead by now, it's still alive. How do you actually go about solving the faxing issue for your clients?
So I've come to find out that obviously we are not ILEX. Some of us may be CLEX, but at the ILEC level, we don't control the lines. The ILEX do. Fax, the nature of fax technology in and of itself is an analog technology. A lot of upstream carriers don't, especially that offer VoIP termination and VoIP interfaces, or SIP interfaces, don't take those considerations in mind. They're just offering a SIP interface. We have found out that using a different carrier for fax origination and termination one that specializes in fax origination and terminations, has shown a significant improvement in reliability to the point where we don't get any more complaints about fax. We have a lot of law firms and medical businesses that rely on fax, and because of that, it was very important to us at one point to make sure fax was as streamlined and reliable as possible. And we have found that that's the most reliable way to do it, is to find a carrier that specifically specializes, an upstream carrier that specializes in fax origination and termination, and make sure you test them till they bleed and make sure you're happy.
So a common practice, if you're looking at different upstream providers, make sure that they do offer T38 faxing. And along that lines, someone might have missed this, but do you charge for long distance? I believe you said you do not. That's all included?
Not for domestic long distance. We do charge for international long distance. We also do offer international packages depending on countries and regions, similar to the competing carriers, because we do have agreements and arrangements with local international termination carriers and providers. We get better rates, so it allows us to offer a competing product. With that said, if a lot of people are here starting out, one of the biggest discouragements, I would say, is the international termination and origination pricing that goes with upstream carriers. And that actually brings me to another reason why I reiterate to use the 2600 hertz platform before you move off into your own cluster. Companies like mine and 2600 hertz have already elevated well past the threshold of being considered a wholesale carrier. We've had these relationships and arrangements for many, many years where we can offer much better pricing than you can get from a carrier or an upstream carrier if you were to go direct. Another value add in something like that is the fact that 2600 hertz and other established providers have already multiple relationships with multiple upstream carriers. It's not just a single point of failure in the event that, God forbid, one ILEC carrier goes down. A company or a platform like 2600 hertz has multiple pipes that they can load off to, stuff that you don't have to worry about. You could just worry about getting the customer, selling the customer, fine tweaking your marketing and sales, and getting your revenue stream moving along.
Mark, I could not agree with you more. So someone actually asked along the line of building their own cluster, which is, how long does it take to deploy a fully functional Kazoo cluster? I could probably answer that. With the new cluster manager tool, if you already have your servers, it can take only a day or two to actually get you up and running. It totally depends on the complexity, if it's in multiple countries, if it's in multiple zones. So it is not an exact answer. If you just want a simple cluster up, and we can get you up and running in a couple hours. If it's distributed amongst around the world, it might take a couple days to really understand the architecture that you want, and then deploy it that fits your needs. Mark, is there anything you want to add to that?
Certainly. Keep in mind that what Patrick's describing is obviously the initial clustered environment. Let's say all of a sudden you have 3 regions, you're west, central, and east, and all of a sudden you're reaching capacity on your East Coast region. It takes literally, especially with the new cluster manager, which I have had the pleasure to beta test, it literally takes only a few minutes to spin up a new free switch, call switch that connects to the network and start routing those calls and alleviate some of the pain points or congestion issues you may be having. You can even do it to the point where if you know that there are specific times of the month that this may happen. I'll give you a perfect example. We have 1-800-Flowers as a customer here in South Florida, and the only times that they're super ridiculously busy, where they push literally 70,000 calls in a week through our network, is during Valentine's Day and Mother's Day. Well, when Valentine's Day and Mother's Day come, we spin up an additional, several free switch servers to accommodate that volume that we know we're going to anticipate. And when Valentine's Day is over and everybody's done returning their flowers, complaining about them, or whatever it is they do, we turn those servers back down.
Absolutely.
So once the initial cluster is arranged and you have a network topology that you're confident with to be able to scale with, adding services on top of that is relatively simple.
Absolutely. Mark, because everybody loves talking about faxing, we got another question about faxing. Are you using ATAs for faxing, and if so, which ones?
We do use ATAs for faxing. Some people simply don't want to get off that physical fax. The only ATA that we have personally found that has been reliable is the Cisco SPA series.
Okay.
The Cisco, excuse me, the Cisco SPA. I think it's the 112s. There's two versions. There's one that comes with a router built in and one that doesn't. However, Cisco and their acquiring of Linksys several years back, they make a very stable and rock solid ATA. And we've tested a whole bunch of different ones, and some are more reliable than others. Some swear by Grandstream, some swear by others. In our experience, in our labs, and in real-world testing, we have found that the Cisco's are rock solid. Once they're set up, they're set it and forget it, and we don't have any issues with them until somebody trips over a wire or something silly.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, someone asked you, do you have a preferred phone? Yealink, Telecom, is there anything that you have better success with than others?
At Vinix, before the provisioner was released, we agreed with 2600 hertz as far as reliability of telephones. We happen to love the Telecom and Yealink. They are our two staples. We know they're reliable. We know that they have a very strong brand and a very strong engineering team behind it. Yealink was very poor quality not even 36 to 48 months ago. However, they really turned that ship around, and they truly are a viable competitor and up there on the same threshold as Telecom. We do like the Cisco SPAs as well. We do support them. I've been loving to get my hands on some OBHI. I have not as yet, but I do know that it is supported by Kazoo in the advanced provisioner. And however, we have had success with putting every phone on. All phones have their own little tweaks. If I were to suggest using a phone, I would definitely suggest the staples being the Ciscos, the Telecoms, or Yealinks currently. They've proven to be rock solid, lots of experience, lots of engineering talent under the hood, and everything pretty much feature-wise works with them very, very well.
And Mark, do you have a particular model that you like better than others, and if not, don't worry about it, but just wondering if there's a particular model that you guys sell more than others?
Apparently the VVX is a big hit. Customers seem to like them. They look good. They're pretty simple. We happen to like the Yealink's T4 series. They're the easiest to deploy, and they seem to just run without issue. We have had zero issues with the Yealinks, and we have found them to be a much better price point, and for the quality, you can't beat it. Those are typically our two main stables, unless the customer has something else in mind.
Absolutely. All right, Mark. I'm assuming you don't just sell to your neighbors. So how do you handle accounts that you cannot locally support?
Well, typically, customers that have 10 phones or more typically will have an IT vendor of some kind, whether it's in-house, whether it's outsourced, so on and so forth. We have been known to give credit for a day of installation to the customer for bringing their IT guy out, because quite honestly, it's very simple. If you understand the Kazoo product, it's so easy to spin up an endpoint. It's almost laughable. As long as you can get a customer to download some sort of remote software to allow you in and walk them through a few steps, getting them provisioned and up and running is only minutes away. And that's how we do it today. We make sure that we hold the customer's hand. We simply ask them to download a remote desktop software. We log into the phones, we provision them, and or we work hand in hand with the IT company or IT personnel to get those up and running, and we will typically give a credit to the customer on their phone bill to alleviate that pain point and make the transition smooth.
Okay, that's great. All right, we have another question about large clients. Mark, for your large clients, do you have to use dedicated connections to data centers due to voice quality?
No.
All right, good answer.
So if just to quickly elaborate on that, as long as you have, which I can vouch for 2600 hertz having, and we do have, as long as you have top tier 1 providers and you have a network that's properly managed, if you have a customer who's on fiber, even if they're over the top, you should not have any issues. We have a lot of customers, while we do sell our own dedicated fiber internet to customers, and we do try to use that as an upsell to say, hey, we do provide quality of service, hey, we do provide better security by it being within our network. A lot of our large enterprise customers are simply on other fiber connections, OTT, especially our larger customers that have multiple fiber circuits that they're already locked into contracts with. Some of them would love to switch to our fiber, but simply can't do so because they're locked into long-term contracts, but they want to utilize our voice services. Because we're on those tier 1 circuits, we don't have hops that are more than 10 hops away, and we are able to provide a superior service.
Absolutely. All right, another question about large clients. How are you able to attack large businesses and stay price competitive? Then they go on to say you have 50 extensions, 25 plus extensions, where a flat fee per extension, that gets very expensive. So I think what they're saying is when you're going after a large client and they have a ton of extensions, it gets very expensive for you or for the client. So how do you stay price competitive with large businesses?
So this goes back to what we were detailing earlier. It's about understanding what your customer does and being a solutions provider as opposed to just selling them a package. One of the reasons why VoIP adoption has been so slow is because the large incumbent telecoms who have adopted VoIP and tried to sell it have done just that. They've said, look, these are what we sell. We sell per seat, that's it. Well, we found out very quickly, for example, I'll give you an example of a medical facility. We have a medical facility that has 50 phones in it. However, they were like, well, we're not going to use all of those phones, as opposed to a staffing company that would have to use, everybody would be on a phone at any given time. So we came up with 2 pricing models, and this is actually where Kazoo really shines. Kazoo having the flexibility to develop those kind of pricing structures, as opposed to a company like Broadsoft, where they charge you X amount per seat and that's it. Allows you to develop different variations of your pricing structure.
Yep.
So in Kazoo, you're able to not only set the service plan per seat, but you can also set the service plan per simultaneous call path. You can also set it for a 2-way call path, inbound, outbound, whatever suits your needs. So you can have a medical facility, as I said, that has a bunch of phones sitting in patient rooms that they typically don't use. And you can say, okay, you have 50 phones, but we're only going to sell you 15 concurrent call paths, and we'll charge you a highly reduced price for each individual seat that sits in the patient rooms that you typically don't use.
Yep.
That way, you're being much more competitive with the incumbent price of having an on-site PBX that just sells lines, as opposed to a competitive VoIP hosted provider that will price you out for each individual seat.
Absolutely. All right, Mark, I'm going to give you a softball. Someone asked, what is the benefit of using Kazoo versus spinning up a free PBX VM for each customer? You can answer this one.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, spinning a quick story. CBeyond was a company that I once did subcontract work for, bought a company called Areta that did exactly what you're describing. They set up asterisk or free PBX services in a VM. Everyone had their own individual instance, and this was supposed to be their way of providing individual services. When it came down to actual functioning services, this was a nightmare. If, God forbid, anything went wrong with that inside that individual data center, all of their services were out. Yep. If anything went wrong with their cluster, or not cluster, but in their individual rack, that service was out. You don't have the scalability and flexibility with individual free switch instances that you do with a product like Kazoo, which was the whole reason 2600 Hertz developed the Kazoo platform in the first place. Sure, anybody can go out there and spin up individual instances of any soft PBX, but when you actually get into the scalability and the reliability of such a system, that's where the Kazoo platform really differentiates you from your competitors. Particularly here in South Florida, there are a lot of vendors out there selling cloud PBX, which is really just somebody running in a warehouse, a rack. But when issues arise with that individual rack and your services go down or your customer services go down, that's when you realize that you've wasted your money. Because at the end of the day, while people may be tolerable to cell phones having outages, companies are not tolerable to business outages. They simply are not. They will not tolerate it. And if you're not up and if you have a memorable reoccurrence of outages, they will quickly look to go somewhere else. And I have seen customers that have spun up instances, and they've tried to run those services for 12, 15 months, and they're gone in no time because they can't sustain the reliability and scalability of a product like Kazoo.
Absolutely. Well, and even with the distributed nature of Kazoo, it keeps your operational costs down because you are still then managing just a Kazoo platform or a Kazoo instance versus 100 different servers individually and stuff. So 100% agree with you, Mark, and that's a great answer. Do you handle compliance internally or do you outsource it? And I believe you said you outsource that.
We absolutely do outsource it. I mean, unless you're in the business, unless you've grown your business to the size where you need tax write-offs and you're looking to hire people and get your name in the Chamber of Commerce, I would strongly suggest you outsource it to a reliable and insured regulatory law firm or tax compliant firm.
Yep.
They have done all of the provisioning and they have all of the manpower in place to make sure that customers across 50 states, you're not missing any tax changes, tax compliance issues. Taxing is done on a federal, state, local, county level, and they all change on a moment's notice. And if you try to maintain all of that yourself, it requires a full staff, a full-time staff. And if you mess up at any point, you're liable. I strongly suggest that you definitely outsource it. It's worth the money, and it's not as expensive as one would think. It's actually very reasonable and affordable to outsource that, and it's strongly suggested.
And I agree with you. And a lot of people get a little scared about going to the outsourced model. However, as you mentioned, a lot of these people have automated the process, so they don't actually manually have a bunch of little chimpanzees typing on typewriters. In the background, it's just computers now that just automate the process for you. You send them the CDRs, they give you your exact information that you need. So great answer, Mark. I think we are almost done with the questions. Will this webinar be available to download? The answer is yes. Oh, here's a good question. Why sell call paths when you can sell minutes, Mark?
I know some may disagree. However, our paradigm is that billing for minutes is a race to the bottom. I don't think that there is a future in minutes per minute billing. Here at Vinix, we believe that the future is in software as a service, which is what Kazoo really accentuates and allows us to do. It allows us to focus on building new features and functions for customers to enhance their communications experience with their customers, as opposed to a race to the bottom, which in our estimation is all billing per minute really is.
100% agree with you, Mark. Now, here's a good question. Do you use a third-party call center solution? And I did not write that question, just so you know. That was from the audience.
No, we do not. We had considered using third-party call center solutions before 2600 Hertz released their beta. However, we felt confident that 2600 Hertz would release a very well thought-out product. So we bit our tongue and we waited. Simple as that. We wanted to use a product that was that we felt confident was tied into the underlying platform, and we're happy that we waited. We're currently using call center beta as we speak. Customers as large as Stanley and Black & Decker, DeWalt, and Caterpillar are currently using it in production as we speak. They're quite happy with it. It has been deemed reliable, and that's the kind of response I'm looking for. So we're happy that we waited, and it's come to be a very mature product at this point.
And if anybody doesn't know Mark has been one of our longest clients. He's also been kind of what we call our canary. So a lot of times when the software is not quite ready for production, Mark loves to get his hands on it, test it out internally on his own system, and then starts giving out to some of his customers that are a little more flexible and a little more patient. And, you know, Mark, it's been fantastic because the feedback you give us helps make the product much better. So when we actually launch this for production, people have a better experience. So we thank you. I think the community thanks you, and you know, everybody at the office thanks you. So thanks for all your hard work with that, Mark. And I think we are almost finished. Do you operate outside of Florida?
Yes, we have customers in almost all 50 states. We do have some customers actually outside of the country that have MPLS or private lines back into the United States to provide service, call center services.
Cool. Now, Mark, can Kazoo UI be translated? How much effort is it to translate? So I need.
Very simple, actually. As a matter of fact, Vinix, we contributed to the Latin American translation. If you go to GitHub, if you're familiar with that, if not, I'm sure somebody from 2600 Hertz will be happy to guide you. There is a very simple document that's all in English, and you can simply go and convert it to the language, and the language of your choice. Right now I know that Kazoo does support Russian, French, Spanish, and English. There may be more in there that I haven't checked lately, but I know it's very simple to translate Kazoo, and it only takes an hour or two of somebody's time to really take the consideration into making sure that it's properly translated. I'm sure there will be everybody putting in their 2 cents on what they think it should say, but the goal is to keep it as abstract and generic as possible so that even if there are different dialects or something of that nature, anybody can understand what the process is and what they're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. All right, Mark, I believe that's all our questions. And if there are actually any questions we missed, I apologize. Feel free to shoot me an email. My email is patrick@2600hertz.com. Otherwise, feel free to send it to sales@2600hertz.com. And if you want to ask Mark any questions, Mark, feel free to give your email address to everybody. Sure. Or you don't have to if you don't want to.
No, anybody can feel free to contact me at mdiaz@vinixglobal.com. And I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has. While you know we're now an established provider in our own right, at Vinix we're very happy to give back anything we can. 2600 Hertz has been benevolent enough from day one to make their product open source when they had no need to. They just feel that they should, and that is, that's given us the ability to become and have the potential to become what we can be. And it's certainly our pleasure at Vinix to be able to give back to 2600 Hertz and anybody else who's interested in utilizing 2600 Hertz. So feel free to contact me if there's any questions you feel you need. I'd be happy to answer anything you have.
Perfect. All right, Mark. Well, hey, huge thank you from all of us at 2600 Hertz for taking the time. I'm sure our community got a ton out of it, so they thank you also. And again, if you have any questions or if anybody has questions for Mark or myself, please email us, and we look forward to the next meeting, the next chat. All right, Mark. I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Have a good day.
Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.